Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Stevie Ray Vaughan guitar, the actual guitar number one. And I'm going to make some suggestions on how you could get a guitar to kind of emulate the sound of Stevie's guitar, the actual physical guitar. Now, the thing with the guitar is there's some misconceptions about the guitar, number one. Here we have a museum that Jimmy Vaughan loaned the guitar to. And in the museum where they had the guitar, they labeled the guitar as a 1959 Stratocaster. So this is where a lot of the confusion and misinformation can come from, because you would think if you went to a museum, this is the guitar in the museum. If you went there and you saw Stevie's number one guitar and the museum said, oh yeah, it's a 1959 Stratocaster, well, you would think it would be a 1959 Stratocaster. They got it from Jimmy Vaughan. They're a museum. No, it's not a 1959 Stratocaster. Stevie Ray Vaughan did not play a 1959 Stratocaster. In 2003, in Austin, Texas, Jimmy Vaughan brought the guitar to a hotel room. He was met there with some representatives from Fender. Richard McDonald, George Blanda, and Mike Eldred. And they went there to make an exact replica of the guitar. This is it right here, 2004 Custom Shop SRV replica. It's an exact replica of the guitar. And at the time, they sold it for $10,000. As you can see in this listing, they have it for $50,000, but this is the replica right here, built by John Cruz. So when they went to take the measurements of the guitar, see what it was made out of, see how it was made, what year it was, what Stevie had done to it, they took the guitar apart, okay? And when they took the guitar apart, here you can see the body separate from the neck. When they took the guitar apart, they found out that the guitar was dated. The neck is dated December 62, and the body is 63. And I believe it was February 63. But nothing has been changed. We believe the guitar came from the factory like that. Meaning Stevie's number one is a 1963 Stratocaster. Okay, it's a 1963 Stratocaster. Okay, now when they put this replica together, they had every measurement on the guitar. You know, how wide the frets were, what kind of frets they were, the neck size, the tone pots. They even went and measured the output of the pickups. You know, the what kind of tremolo he was using, this and that. That's for the exact replica. As you can see, they even used those kind of pearlescent tuning pegs that were on the original guitar here. Those type of tuning pegs. That's for the replica. Now, in the meantime, they have put out the Stevie Ray Vaughan Stratocaster, which is just a regular Artist Series is what they call this Stratocaster. And they've also put out a limited edition master built Stratocaster. That's this one right here. Now, on the master built one, they lay down what they found out about Stevie's 63 Strat. And what they found out was the body is a two-piece alder body. So the body of number one is a two-piece body. Okay. Now, later on in the video, I'm going to explain what kind of guitar you can get and how important it is to have a two-piece body or a one-piece body, etc. Right now, I'm just talking about what this guitar is. It's a two-piece alder body, stock pickups, meaning 1963 pickups, maple neck with a rosewood fingerboard, a bone nut. Tuning pegs are not original, but they are Fender tuning pegs, a left-handed tremolo unit, and that's pretty much the guitar. Stock volume pots, stock tone pots, stock switch, and these could have been changed out over the years because he's pretty hard on his equipment. But there's nothing really too crazy. This is probably the craziest mod. If you look here, here's the right-handed tremolo where it used to go, and they had to route it out for the left-handed tremolo. You can see this big space right here. There's a big space right here. So they had to route it out for the tremolo, but outside of that, there's really no mods to it. There's no electronic modifications. There's no, it's a Fender Stratocaster. So now I'm going to talk about the components of the Strat and how important some of them are for you if you want to try to get a Stevie Ray Vaughan sound. Okay. So number one, if you want a guitar that sounds like a Stevie guitar, okay, well, Fender, I'll tell you, buy this one. It's a signature series. You know what I'm saying? I used to have one of these guitars. I was not crazy about it. I ended up selling it. So to me, for $2,000, in the modern day right now, you can get a lot of guitar for $2,000. Okay. And this may not be your best option, but it's also cool to have, a signature series guitar. One of my problems with this is it has Texas special pickups in it. It has a Powell Faro fingerboard, not rosewood, and it's got a synthetic bone nut, not a real bone nut. So for $2,000, I could build a guitar with a rosewood fingerboard and a real bone nut and different pickups. And I have a video on pickups, specifically on pickups, that's worth watching to figure out what kind of pickups you want in your Strat to sound like Stevie. But on the limited edition guitar and on Stevie's guitar, it was a two-piece alder body. Okay. You don't need a two-piece alder body. You can just get an alder body. And most Strats, the wood they use in the body is alder. So when in doubt, if you're like in a pawn shop or something and you're wondering, hey man, I wonder what kind of body this Strat has, and you're playing it thinking it sounds pretty good, it's probably an alder body. The other wood is usually an ash, and it's a little bit lighter, not always, but a little bit lighter, and it has a little bit more of a treble response to it. But most Stratocasters are going to be made of alder. Okay. Does it matter if it's a two-piece body? No. That came down to more of a production technique, a production, in other words, in 1962, the machines they were using weren't as advanced as they are now, and they can cut out an alder one-piece body pretty easy right now. Now the neck on the guitar, okay, the neck is maple. They call it ripped sawn maple, but that just is just the way that the grain kind of lines up. If you have a maple neck, it's fine, okay, as long as it has the rosewood fingerboard on it, okay? That's important if you want to sound like Stevie. Stevie rarely played a guitar with just a pure maple neck, okay? Maple neck is the lighter colored neck with nothing on it. It's just a piece of wood. This neck and the neck that you want to get to sound like Stevie is going to be a maple neck with, and they add a fingerboard on it that's made out of rosewood. I think it's important to get the rosewood. That's just my opinion. Now, the width of the neck can also be kind of important because this is 1.650 or 42 millimeters. It's a little bit of a wider neck. And a wider neck, to me, actually sounds a little different on a guitar. Okay? A guitar sounds a little different, probably about 5% different with a wider neck. And the wider neck also can accommodate the thicker strings. So if you want to play with some thicker strings and you have a wider neck, you can kind of get around on it a little bit more and kind of manipulate the strings with some vibrato and bends a little bit easier on a wider neck. So that is something to consider. Now, if you love the guitar and the guitar's got a thinner neck, it's fine too. I've got one with some a real thin neck on it, a Fender. I love it. I think it's great and it sounds great. But this does make a little bit of a difference. Now, in terms of the frets, they're jumbo frets. Does that make a difference? To me, it does not. Okay. Makes a little bit of difference in the playability of the guitar. But in terms of the sound, doesn't really make that much difference. It's a 21 fret guitar. Now, the scale of the guitar that's normal for a Stratocaster. Okay, that's normal, 21 fret guitar. I have a Strat with the 22 fret neck. Does not affect the sound of the guitar. If you want 22 frets, go for it. Now, there's also something about the finish on this guitar. Nitro cellulose lacquer. This is a vintage type of finish. Now, I personally believe that it does make a difference in the sound. I personally believe that. But on Stevie's guitar, he had already worn all of it off. So, I mean, you're not getting much nitrocellulose lacquer here, or on the neck. Look at the neck. I mean, the neck is done. There's none on there. Look, the divots, look at the wear. There's no nitrocellulose lacquer on the neck left. So does the nitrocellulose lacquer make a difference? To me, it does. Probably, once again, only about 2%, maybe 3% on your sound. But it does make a difference, in my opinion. That's my opinion. So if you want to get if not, I wouldn't worry too much about it because, like I said, Stevie's guitar was pretty much devoid of any lacquer by the time you heard it, which is another important note. Stevie's guitar was 20 years old in 1982 when his first record came out. Okay. So by the time you heard Stevie Ray Vaughan, his guitar was already aged 20 years. So, in my opinion, if I was trying to sound like this guitar, I would get one from 2002 or before, because you're going to get a guitar that's aged, and a guitar, in my opinion, takes on a different tone when it is aged 20 years. That's my mark. That's my benchmark for a guitar to actually be broken, to be dried out, to be kind of melded together, to be well played. It's about 20 years. So if a guitar is 20 years old, to me, it sounds better. It has more of what I call a crack to it. Like the sound jumps off of it a little bit more. It's my opinion. Okay. So if I was you and I was looking for a guitar like this, I would get one from 2002 or before, a 90s, early 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, early 2000s Strat. You can't go wrong. Now, in terms of the modification, the biggest modification to me that makes the most difference on this guitar is this right here, the bone nut. So when you get your guitar, and if you got a nice expensive guitar, this will really make a good difference. If you have a midline guitar, it will make a difference. If you have a lower line guitar, it may not make that much difference. It'll make a little bit, but not a lot. If you do want to get a Stevie sound, though, he had every single nut on his guitar was bone, brass, something other than plastic. Okay. And traditionally on guitars, the material that was used for this nut was bone. So it's time tested. And in my opinion, it sounds fantastic. It will improve the sound of your guitar 10%. It'll bring out the highs. Like if this is an EQ curve, it'll bring out the highs. It'll bring out the lows. It'll give you some clarity, and it will give you more sustain. So if there's the one mod on this guitar, which there's not many, obviously, but this is the one mod that does affect your tone. Now, are you going to sound like Stevie with a bone nut? No. Are you going to get closer to his sound? Yes, guaranteed. And if you note, on the limited edition, they use a bone nut. On this limited edition model, they use a bone nut. But on the Stevie Ray Vaughan model, what do they use? Synthetic bone. So on their higher end guitar, their limited edition model, they used the bone nut, right? On the just the signature series, they used a plastic imitation bone nut. Now it doesn't cost that much to get a bone nut on your guitar. Okay. It doesn't cost that much. It costs about $75 to $100, but get it done by somebody who knows what they're doing. Get it done by a guy who's worked on a guitar for many, many, many years. Okay, there it is. There's the bone nut. Get a guy who's worked on a guitar for many years to cut this out, because it is a precision job, and it takes a good amount of skill to do this correctly. Don't take it to Guitar Center and have a 22-year-old kid, put in the bone nut. Take it to a qualified technician and have him put in a bone nut. So in terms of your guitar to sound like Stevie's, you want an alder body. You want a maple neck with a rosewood fingerboard. You want a guitar with a tremolo in it. You want the tremolo in it because the guitar has a different sound with the tremolo cut out for the guitar. There's something called the hardtail Strat that does not have a tremolo. You want the tremolo in the guitar. You may never use it, but you want it in there. Some people think that leaving this plate off the back affects your tone. Some people think it doesn't. That's up to you. Stevie didn't keep his on his guitar. He also used 5 springs. I would put 5 springs in there. And if you want to sound like Stevie, just leave the plate off the back. So you've got the, do the tuning pegs make a difference? No. Do the tuning pegs make a difference on the guitar? No. So you can get any tuning pegs you want. You don't have to have, these are vintage tuners right here on the limited edition. That's not the actual tuners. If you look at the exact replica, he uses more of an updated kind of Fender tuner. On the limited edition, he uses the vintage Fender tuner. So tuners really don't make any difference as long as they're keeping your guitar in tune. Does the fretboard make a difference? Yes, you want a rosewood fretboard, 100%. Do the size make a difference? Not really. Get any size frets that you're comfortable with. Do the pickups make a difference? Yes, I made a video about that. The tone knobs, standard. Switch, standard. Input jack, standard. You're done. So you get an alder body, maple neck with the rosewood fingerboard, and a bone nut on your guitar, and the correct pickups. And you've got an instrument that you can start attempting to get a Stevie Ray Vaughan sound with. So if you take those guidelines with you, and like I said, probably from 2002 or before, you want to kind of search around that area. If you use those guidelines, you can get you a good guitar to start your journey, or to continue your journey, or to expand your journey on the way to achieving a tone that you're happy with. And Stevie Ray Vaughan is a great place to start with that tone. He had a great tone. So good luck.